Nobody ever said making a video game would be easy. The director has to gather a team of wildly divergent personalities, interests, and ambitions. It's really a miracle that any game ever gets made, let alone released to stores, at all. Through all that creative chaos, mistakes are going to happen, and sometimes they can cause some serious lasting damage to the game's development, or the studio's reputation. And then there are the jaw-dropping screw-ups that somebody, somewhere, is going to have to pay for. So, here are 5 mistakes that got game developers fired. He's only one of the most famous names in video games. Hideo Kojima, whose decades-long work on his own Metal Gear Solid franchise has made him a legend, is one of the most interesting, original, and thought-provoking minds in the entire industry. There's just no one else who can blend Western military espionage fiction, Japanese anime influences, and highbrow philosophical concepts into a game that just soars. He is singular, unique, so Konami fired him. While the specific details behind Kojima's termination from the publisher remain unknown, it seems he and Konami had strong disagreements over scheduling, budget, and creative direction. Basically, Kojima wanted to take a long time, and spend a lot of money, to get Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain just right. Konami wanted it faster and cheaper, and they were fed up arguing with an artist. Kojima was shown the door, and Konami felt they now had things under control. Big mistake. The next Metal Gear game, subtitled Survive, was a complete bomb. Perhaps people actually, care about quality? Imagine, and quality doesn't come fast or cheap, it comes with Kojima. Action games don't get much bigger than the God of War series. Built on mythical scale and epic storylines, God of War is all about pushing technology and combat to the limits of possibility. God of War 3 pulled that trick off marvelously for the PlayStation 3, and it remains a beloved entry in that stellar franchise. Just ask its PS4 remaster. Stig Asmussen was the brains behind God of War 3, but after completing the title, he wanted to move on to another franchise, something of his own design, a game he could mold from scratch. Sony, naturally, was in love with the man at the time, and gladly gave him a reported $100 million budget to make a science fiction opus. The world was his to conquer. Instead, his game was cancelled. Sony has never officially commented on what happened, or even admitted that the game ever existed in the first place, but insiders claim that the game was simply garbage. How could Asmussen, who had done so well on God of War, turn around and deliver such an awful product? Asmussen was rewarded for his failure by being pushed out of the company, and a number of his staff were laid off with him. Once upon a time, there was a video game. You may have heard of it. It was called Final Fantasy VII, and it transformed the industry. From its bleeding-edge graphics and cutscenes to its simple yet deep progression systems and its grandiose storytelling. Final Fantasy VII was a key moment in the evolution of a kid's medium into serious art. It defined an era. It's still a beloved classic to this day. So when Square Enix announced that they were making an entirely new game, fans went crazy. There are few titles that still garner that much passion 20 years after their original release. So, for developers of CyberConnect 2, who were tapped to actually make the game, it was the opportunity of a lifetime. Instead, they wasted it, citing factors such as a stable schedule and quality, which are kind of important. Naoki Hamaguchi announced that CyberConnect 2 was being pulled off of development, and that Square Enix itself would take over production duties. Clearly, CyberConnect 2 had been dragging their feet, and not out of perfectionism. You'd think the developer would want to give such a high-profile project their all. They didn't. Given how it turned out, a lot of people wonder just how a game like Mass Effect Andromeda could exist. It was supposed to start off a whole new era of BioWare's beloved sci-fi series, bringing the franchise back to life after a 5-year break. And yet the final product was a buggy, scattered mess, lacking the engaging characters and politics of the original trilogy. Future work on the IP was later shelved, likely due to low sales and tarnished reputation. What happened? According to a long report by Kotaku, development on the game started with galaxicized ambitions. Literally, BioWare wanted to let the player traverse the entire Andromeda galaxy at will, visiting procedurally generated planets as they wished. It was a huge undertaking, and as it turned out, An ultimately fruitless one. The game shipped with only a handful of handcrafted planets to explore. Lots of games have to scope down their ambitions. The trouble here was that BioWare wasted years chasing this travel the galaxy idea, which was time and money that could have been spent making a better final product. BioWare General Manager Aaron Flynn apparently took too long to make that decision. He stepped down from his post not long after Andromeda's troubled launch, which almost certainly means fired. In general, if an employee does some good work and makes you some money, you'll want to reward that employee. You want them to continue doing that work so they continue making you money. Seems obvious, right? Well, two particular Activision employees, Jason West and Vince Zampella, made their bosses a whole truckload of money. West and Zampella were the masterminds behind Call of Duty, and the guys that grew it from a brand new World War II series into the modern-day success it is today. In return, Activision fired them. This appears to be related to the rights to the franchise itself, which Activision agreed to leave in the duo's hands in a contract they all signed. But the contract had a loophole. If the two were fired, Activision would obtain their rights to Call of Duty by default. Not long afterwards, tensions flared between the company and the creatives, and soon enough, West and Zampella were let go. While it seems West and Zampella might not be entirely blameless, it's awful to be fired after making the most profitable franchise in the industry. Since it seems to have been a matter of rights negotiation, than anything else, if the two had just read their contracts more carefully, the whole situation might have been avoided.